Shall we pray? Father, we thank you for the privilege of life, the blessing of health, and above all, the miracle of strength. As we've gathered in this place to celebrate the life and the legacy, reflecting on the past, embracing the present, and envisioning the future for the efforts of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As always, we invite your presence to lead us, guide us, direct us, speak to us, speak through us, and live in us the principles he taught us. And for these things, and so much more, we simply say, thank you. It is in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit we pray. Amen.
Good morning. It's my pleasure this morning to welcome each of you to our city's 25th annual Unity Breakfast. The Bible tells us that God is pleased when his people come together in unity. This Unity Breakfast is our way here in Rocky Mount to come together as a community, and it is appropriate to unite and stand as one community to celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I would especially like to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Avery Friedland, whom Wall Street Journal calls a walking reference source on civil rights law. Many of you know him from his work on CNN, and he has a long history of fighting for civil and human rights. We're here today not only to celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but also to take a moment this morning to reflect on his teachings and how they still hold meaning in our daily lives and in today's ever-changing world. Today's theme is reflecting on the past, embracing the present, and envisioning the future. And I hope that all of you will take some time today to reflect on your past, embrace the present moment, and envision your future. If you look at where we are today, I think we've made great progress through the work of a lot of really good people trying to do the right thing. But we still have work to do, and it seems as if there will always be those that are prejudiced, whether it's because of race, whether it's because of religion, whether it's because of heritage, or whether it's because of sex or age. So I ask you to envision, where will you be in the future? 10 or 15 years from now, where will we be? Solutions will not happen overnight, but progress can be made by advancing one step at a time. Each of us can try and help by inspiring one person, who in turn will hopefully inspire someone else. I ask you today, here in Rocky Mount, to make our community, our state, and our nation a better place to live for all of our citizens. When we leave this place this morning, may Dr. King's words of unity and hope inspire us to continue our struggle for justice and equality each and every day of our lives. Thank you all for being here this morning, and God bless you.
Good morning as well. My name is Jim Gray. I'm president of Wesleyan College, and I want to welcome you to a school that treasures the kind of diversity that Dr. King talked about and stood for. It was no coincidence that this morning a beautiful sunrise came across this campus. I hope you were able to enjoy it as I did. This school was 3 years old in 1963 when the I Have a Dream speech you'll hear a lot about today was given. I don't believe that we at this place would be transforming as many lives for the better as we are without that speech and without Dr. King. On two personal notes, I thought back to 1963. I was a 10th grader up in Massachusetts at a school virtually all white. I had had a relationship with people of color my entire life growing up in Winston-Salem. But when I read the first full speech that I'd ever read, and that was Dr. King's speech that fall, it changed my life and changed my perspective on many things, and I'm grateful for that. 2 years ago on this very stage, Martin Luther King III walked across this stage, and I was honored to present him with an honorary doctorate from this institution. And those of you who were here could hear Dr. King's words and intonation from time to time in that speech that he gave. A friend of mine in Atlanta recently told me he was at Martin King's office at the King Center, and there was a North Carolina Wesleyan degree on his wall. So we are very proud of that, and we are very proud of all the fine people who've gathered today. We thank you for coming out for this great day, and we will see you throughout the day in the day of service as we remember Dr. King.
Good morning. My name is Shaquille Moore, and I had the pleasure of participating in the MLK Oratorical Contest, and the experience really enhanced my leadership ability. As I look back over last year's event, I can remember how excited I was to be able to express my opinion about Dr. King and how he has impacted my life. As last year's oratorical winner, I congratulate both of the students who are our 2013 winners. The first place contest winner in grades 6 through 8 is Javen Richardson, an 8th grader at Nash Central Middle School. The first place contest winner representing grades 9 through 12 is at Xavier, Maryland, an 11th grader at Nash Rocky Mount Early College High School. Sit back, relax, and let's listen to these young people as they share their orations with us. Javen will speak first, and then at Xavier. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Good morning. Remembering the past, envisioning the future. In the 1950s and 1960s, blacks and whites were separated. The Jim Crow was a system of laws that enforced racial segregation and discrimination throughout the United States. The laws did not specifically mention race, but were written in a way that applied against African Americans. Frederick Douglass gave speeches at large protests of brotherhood of liberty. He made groups to plan legal and political action against segregation. Many pioneers fought battles and wars to make this world better, such as Dr. King, who led millions to protest against violence. He envisioned dreams that became reality. Maya Angelou once said, "Envisioning your future is the greatest danger that lies for us, which not in setting our aim too high, but in setting our aim too low." When I think of visions, I think about possibilities and desires that will take us to places that no one has ever been. Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech exhibits an ability to envision a racially integrated future for America. Since the world was created, people envisioned great dreams. They wanted better. This is seen through the ingenuity of mankind and the advancements of societies in all aspects. Envisioning the future brings upon goals we want to accomplish, dreams we want to be accomplished, and living in happiness. It's okay to remember your past, but don't stay stuck on it. For if you do, you will have no future. Now, some people choose to only dwell on the past. But now at this very moment, you are making choices and decisions that will not only change the now, but everything that we look forward to in life. Make your past better. Embrace your life while on this journey. Throughout my life, I've been blessed to withstand times of unforgettable difficulties. But through my trials and tribulations, I've remembered the past, but looking toward my future. One day my endeavors will become reality, much like those who paved the way for me. I want you to keep dreaming, keep striving, for tomorrow has not yet come. We only have today. We are the dream, remembering the past and envisioning the future. Let us begin. God bless you.
America, America, land of the free and home of the brave. You know, I often hear freedom personified as a woman, Lady Liberty, beautiful, graceful, peaceful. She represents the current privileges that we have in our country, the story of America, the greatest struggle combined with the greatest love story of all time. Lady Liberty, fought for by the masculine side of our country, Brother Bravery, strong, bold, prideful. But see, that pride is a dangerous thing because normally it comes just before the fall, but luckily for our country, she has already had her share of mishaps. And it's important to reflect on these things because as Spanish philosopher George Santayana once said, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. America has done some things that she is not proud of. Whether it be the mistreatment of the Native Americans or the institution of slavery, America has done some things that she is not proud of. And we must reflect on these things to ensure that we do not make the same mistakes. The mistakes of robbing our brothers and sisters of their freedom, whether it be through suppressing their creativity or robbing them of their individuality. It's all freedom. It's all slavery. And as long as one of us is enslaved, none of us are free. We must reflect in order to ensure that we do not repeat. As previously stated, Lady Liberty represents our present. We must embrace her, love her, because like any woman, if mistreated, she will leave us. She needs to be held. She needs to be caressed. We need to let her know that we do not take her for granted. We must also embrace that we are an imperfect country, but we must strive for excellence. We cannot be complacent in mediocrity. Aristotle said it best. He said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And as a habit, we must focus on making this habit and continuing it to be a habit in our future. We are only limited by our imagination and work ethic. A great poet once told me, he said, we make the mistake of reaching for the stars, but forgetting that we have to go through gravity first. So I pondered, what is gravity? What is gravity in my life? And I began to think, gravity could be anything. Gravity could be my socioeconomic status. Gravity can be the neighborhood I grew up in. Gravity can be my skin color. Gravity can be one of my parents. Gravity can be my lack of imagination. Gravity can be my own work ethic. I can fail because of my laziness. And it's because of this gravity, because of this constant fight against the things that would try to drag me back away from my dreams. This is why I must reflect. This is why I must embrace. And this is why I must envision. Thank you.
Good morning. It is my privilege and honor to introduce our speaker to us today. The Wall Street Journal calls Avery Friedman a walking reference on civil rights, and he has been recognized in Time and USA Today as a National Distinguished Civil Rights Lawyer and Professor. For 12 years, you see him on CNN along with an audience of over 3 million viewers coast to coast every Saturday. But Avery joins us today not only as an analyst, but with 4 decades as a federal civil rights lawyer and professor. In the book, Domestic Policies, Professor John Forrest Kane, former chair of the Harvard's Department of Economics, wrote about our speaker. A single attorney, Avery Friedman, has brought more federal fair housing cases in the last 8 years than the Justice Department brought for the entire country. He has appeared at the invitation of both House and the U.S. Senate subcommittees as an expert on civil and constitutional law, and has been called a true freedom fighter by the NAACP for his prosecution of thousands of federal civil rights cases throughout our nation. Our speaker is the recipient of the legendary Champion of Civil Rights Award by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization founded by Dr. Martin Luther King, and is the first living non-minority to be inducted into the Ohio Civil Rights Hall of Fame. He joins great Americans like Jesse Owens and Maya Angelou as a Hall of Fame inductee. I think that speaks millions for highly of him. And he has also came to this city, and yesterday one of the first things that he wanted to do when he got here, when he arrived, was to visit the Martin Luther King statue. He visited the park and went out to see the statue. And I'm sure he's going to comment on that this morning. And also, one of the things that I think highly of him is he's been married for 45 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If I didn't know me, I'd be impressed. May I say good morning to you? Thank you. to Mayor David Combs, to President Jim Gray, honored clergy, and other members of the dais here, ladies and gentlemen. I noticed that over the years, as your Dr. King speakers, you've had ministers and historians, especially for the Unity Breakfast, but today you brought in a lawyer. You brought in a lawyer. Now, I must tell you, first and foremost, lawyers are not all that amusing. And I don't know if you've had this experience. A lot of these guys have their hand out looking for money. Those lawyers, that's right. Well, and maybe worst of all, a lot of the lawyers get arrogant. You run into those arrogant lawyers? You run into that problem? Sure. Yeah, sure. Actually, to be honest with you, I got in trouble myself. About 2 weeks ago, I bust my kitchen sink at home. And I call up the plumber, and the plumber comes out, and he's there for about 20 minutes. He fixes the kitchen sink, and he gives me a bill for $200. I mean, the plumber gives me a bill for $200. He's been there 20 minutes. And I get on my high horse, and I go, you know, I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer, and I don't charge $200 for 20 minutes. Plumber looks at me, he goes, you know, when I was a lawyer, I didn't charge that much either. Pretty much helped me, put me in my place. I'm so happy to be here in Rocky Mount. My attachment with this great state goes back 35 years, when the planning department at UNC Chapel Hill and the law school raided the Joint Center at Harvard MIT and brought a bunch of faculty, and I was honored to deliver a series of lectures there 35 years ago. And 8 years later, over to Durham, over to the law school at Duke. Also had an opportunity to work in Asheville, and then not too long ago did a trial in Tarboro. Any Tarboro people here? Got Tarboro people? Okay, welcome. I'd never been there, and the judge got on the bench and looked at me, and he goes, Mr. Friedman, welcome to our economy. I don't even know what that meant. But he was very good to me, and we prevailed, and I hightailed it out of town after that. That was it. There is a gravitational pull, a Carolina gravitational pull, that brings me back to Carolina and almost like a prodigal son returns me here. This Martin Luther King Day is packed with important anniversaries. First and foremost, 1988, you did it for the first time. Happy anniversary to Rocky Mount on its 25th anniversary of the Dr. King celebration. Congratulations to you. Well deserved. 1863, that's 150 years ago. Another momentous anniversary. President Lincoln was worried after hours of shaking hands what people might think of his penmanship when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation 150 years ago. Today, of course, we celebrate America's 57th presidential inauguration, the first 224 years ago in New York City, George Washington. 1963, the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, which we'll talk about shortly. And 1968, 45 years ago, a law that was going to protect all Americans from discrimination in housing was bottled up in committee. It had no more chance of passing than Sonny Corleone in a toll booth. Why did it happen? No political groundswell to protect Americans from discrimination. There's only one reason we have a Fair Housing Act in the first place, and that was as a direct consequence of the assassination of Dr. King on the 4th of April, 1968. And as a result of the riots in Los Angeles and Detroit and Milwaukee and Chicago and St. Louis and Washington, D.C., because of the riots, the Fair Housing Act was passed. Only because of this act of violence. The comments, and I searched back in the congressional record, of what members of Congress were saying shortly after the murder of Dr. King, so strange to me. The record speaks for itself, said Congressman Tom Bevel of Alabama. The more so-called civil rights legislation Congress passes, the more militant the Negroes become. Really? Here's a comment from Congressman Joe Wagner, Louisiana, after the assassination. White congressman. I am sure you know that I know something about the Negro man. A good bit more about the Negro man than most do here. And I am looking straight at some members of the Congress. I have more Negro friends than all of you put together. And the truth is, the vast majority of the Negroes, 90% of them, are decent. Hope none of that 10%'s here. But this fair housing bill is going to add another burning ember to the fire. Finally, someone with sense, who chaired the committee actually that I appeared before, the Judiciary Committee. Mr. Speaker, I cannot help but rise at this moment during this debate to state how deeply the words I have heard have sunk into my heart. Our nation is sleepless in grief and shame. Congressman John Conyers from Detroit. And finally, this bill provides, this fair housing law, that when one goes into the marketplace to acquire a home, with all that means, the seat of the family altar, the sacred area where the family, that little unit, blessed of God, stands together apart from the world, to share its joys and sorrows, large and small, that man's offer shall not be spurned nor fall from deaf ears because of his race, color, religion, or national origin. That, Congressman Charles Mathias of Maryland said, is the American way. It's true. It's true. One day before the assassination, Dr. King talked to us about why we need these laws. He said, quote, morality cannot be legislated, but behavior can be regulated. Judicial decrees may not change the heart, but they can restrain the heartless. If we're to properly reflect on the past, our theme today, embrace the present, our theme today, and envision the future, our theme today, we need to honestly assess. In fact, if we don't lucidly reflect on the past, our future blows up quickly like a tick on Dracula. It's strange to me what some white people will say to me and other white people will say that they might never say to you. Things they would never dream of saying. What do these people want? We hear, what do these people want? Well, the great American poet and writer, from my hometown of Cleveland, by the way, Langston Hughes, answered that question, what do these people want? Black Americans want what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, We want my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. We want everything we ever heard about in all the 4th of July speeches ever made. You know, maybe I shouldn't be complaining. You know, without bigoted people, I'd be out of business. I'd have to write wills or do divorce cases, or, you know, what real lawyers do, I guess. But I'm not worried. There's a certain irony that all of us face. In fact, when Archie Jones took me by there's a Applebee's east of here, and there's a sign when you walk in, right in the front. There's one sign, and the first line of the sign said, there's an arrow and it says restrooms. And then right below that it said, please wait for your hostess to seat you. Heck, kind of, never seen that before. Maybe it's a Rocky Mountain, I don't know. Look, I never saw it before. Here we are at the Unity Breakfast, but I have to raise this question. I mean, being honest, are we really in unity? I mean, are we really post-racial? Follow me on this, okay? 57.5% of all Americans eligible to vote, 57.5% voted in the 2012 election. Of the 57.5%, roughly 50.2% voted for Barack Obama. Okay, so if you multiply 50.2% times 57.5%, that gives you 28.9%. So that means that 28.9% of all eligible American voters voted for Barack Obama. Well, of course, that means that roughly 71.1% of the eligible American voters didn't vote for Barack Obama. And he's being inaugurated today. Well, he was inaugurated yesterday, but that's right. Doesn't look too much like a post-racial message to me. In fact, it kind of looks like with the 40% of Americans who stayed at home, hey, why don't you get out of bed and get over to vote? What's the matter with you? Really, what's the matter with you? It's a soul-sapping statistic. Well, why is that? Why do Americans like that? Now, some, I heard David Combs mention this, maybe we're getting away from religion. Maybe we're getting away from religion. I asked a friend of mine, I go, do you think we're really getting away from religion? And he goes, no, I don't think so. He says, I think I know all the 8 commandments. So, on the question of unity, I'm not unmindful that you had today in Rocky Mount another guest here 51 years ago. And he was at the city's, Archie showed me this, the recreational center, which used to be Booker T. Washington High School. Yeah? And like me, he told you that it was his first time here. And he ended with language 9 months before he refined his thoughts and language before the March on Washington 50 years ago. But the way he put it was this: I have a dream that one day right here in Rocky Mount, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will meet at the table of brotherhood. And that my little daughter and my 2 sons will grow up in a world not conscious of the color of their skins, but only conscious of the fact that they are members of the human race. The content of their character had not evolved and evolved 9 months later. On the question of unity, when Archie took me to the statue, I didn't look at it quickly and leave. I made Archie stay with me so I could study and contemplate. And I'm not unmindful of those cut marks at the bottom of the statue. Cut marks at the bottom of the statue. You have to be honest. Now, sometimes in being honest, we tell lies, even little white lies to make people feel better. Not a good idea. Let me tell you what happened. I'm one of 6 grandsons, all boys in my family, when I was growing up. And my grandmother lived in, old people's, you don't call it old people's housing, what do you call it? Senior something. And back in the 1980s, to buy a microwave, today you can get them real cheap, but back then it was about $400 to buy a microwave. So my grandmother said, Dolly, she called all 6 boys Dolly because she couldn't remember our names. So she said, Dolly, I'd love to have one of those microwaves, but they're $400. Well, I knew my grandmother wanted that thing, and I go, you know what, Graham, I'm going to buy you one of those microwaves. She goes, oh, no, Dolly, I don't want you, that's $400. So I lied to her, and I tell her, look, I got a friend down at the warehouse, you can get them for $25. So anyway, I pick up, I go to Best Buy, whatever, spent $400 and bring it over. And she was so happy, my grandmother, she had a brand new microwave, and she's gonna show all the ladies on the floor, I got a microwave. So 2 weeks later, the mail arrives at the law firm, and there's a letter I see, with my grandmother's address, and I open it up, and I pull out a check for $200. And she has a note, she goes, Dear Dolly, thank you so much for the microwaves. All the ladies on the floor are so happy. Will you go out and buy 8 of them, please? Well, I didn't know. Little white lie, just trying to be nice, holy smokes. Learned my lesson. Now look, it's funny about how events change your life. On September 11th, 2001, my daughter Erica, who got married the year before, was a public defender in Lower Manhattan. And she was 8 months pregnant. And when they hit us, she tried to get out, didn't even have any shoes on. When the concrete started falling on her, that triggered shock, and shock triggered labor. And when NYPD got to her, they saw her on the side of the road, and they caravaned her to the hospital in Lower Manhattan. On 4:45, on September 11th, 2001, a little baby girl was born. We lost 3,000 of our brothers and sisters because of hate that day, but we gained 1, and that's my granddaughter, Callie. My wife and I didn't know that until a call came from the hospital about 7 that night. We thought we had actually lost our daughter, and we jumped in the car and got to Manhattan, got to New York about 3 in the morning. Well, and if you remember, the city was in lockdown. Anyway, negotiate my way in. And I spent the next week from the night of September 11th till the 22nd. And I walked around the city after everything I saw was under control. And I saw that Americans were unified against the forces who hate us for being free, who hate us for being free. How are you, strangers would say to me on those sunny days in Manhattan that followed. Are you all right? The houses of worship, the doors were open. We were unified in our fight for freedom. So when I came back to my hometown, there was a 16-year-old boy sitting in the lobby with his parents, and his sister had been injured also in Manhattan. And let me tell you what he did. He had a picture of an American eagle with a tear coming down and the burning trade towers in the back. He put it on his high school locker, and the adults, the school officials, expelled him for putting that on his locker. They thought it was too controversial. Too controversial, you're expelled. He expressed his love for his country, he expressed his patriotism, he expressed his support for his country, and at that school, he was thrown out of school. I had just come back from Manhattan, and I said to this young man, Aaron Pettit, I'd be proud to be your lawyer in the United States District Court under the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of speech. And that federal courtroom, ladies and gentlemen, was packed. Packed. Me and this 16-year-old kid and these adult officials with all their lawyers. It went to the Chief United States District Judge, and he ruled that young Aaron had a right to post that patriotic poster. The federal judge put him back in school, but more importantly, under a consent decree, the federal judge sent the principal and the superintendent back to school to learn about the American Constitution. What do you think of that? Yeah, you couldn't hire screenwriters to come up with that. If there were ever a time in American history to do something about the concept of liberty and justice for some, it is now. Everybody knows the first verse of what I think should be our national anthem. It is not. And that's America the Beautiful. Even as kids, we knew the language, amber waves of grain and purple mountain majesties. The amazing lyrics by Catherine Lee Bates. But those of us involved in our federal courts and those of us who teach are inspired by the lyrics of the second verse of America the Beautiful. Its language is a little antiquated, but it has a bombshell message, and it goes like this. America, America, God mend thine every flaw. Confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. We can take control because we don't place restrictions on our shelf. Don't accept whatever comes your way. You were born to win. You were born for greatness. You were created to be a champion in life. That wasn't me. That was Joel Osteen. I just kind of like that. But we have to throw off the shackles, some of which are imposed on us and some of which we self-impose. Recall, to achieve justice, Rosa Parks stood up by sitting down. One of my favorite groups, the Eagles, said it best. So oftentimes it happens, we live our lives in chains and never even know we have the key. Now, I understand that in life you may never achieve all of your ambitions. For example, a friend of mine, his life ambition was to wear a mask and take other people's money. But sadly, he never became a surgeon. Well, there are times in life where you're simply misunderstood by others. I recently had a jury trial where the judge is asking a man, a potential juror, some of the basics. And you hear this commonly in trials. The judge, are you a property owner? Man, yes, I am. Yes, I am, Your Honor. Judge, married or single? Man, married for 20 years. Judge, formed or expressed an opinion? Man, not in 20 years, Your Honor. A friend of mine recently retired, an ACP board chair, Julian Bond, tells the story of his great-grandfather, a former slave. Though recently out of slavery, back in the 1860s, he was asked to deliver a college commencement address, something I get to do periodically. And this man, again, a former slave, delivered this address. It has application in reflecting on the past, understanding the future, projecting where we go in the future. Quote, "The pessimist from his corner," he said, looks out upon the world of wickedness and sin, and blinded by all that is good or hopeful in the condition and progress of the human race, bewails the present state of affairs and predicts woeful things for all the future. In every cloud he beholds a destructive storm, in every flash of lightning an omen of evil, and in every shadow that falls across his path a lurking foe. But he forgets that the clouds also bring life and hope, that the lightning purifies the atmosphere, that shadow and darkness prepare for sunshine and growth, that the hardships and adversity nerve the race as the individual for greater efforts and grander victories. Greater efforts and grander victories. Let's start today, right here in Rocky Mount. Let's reach for greater efforts and grander victories. Greater efforts and grander victories for you, for the celebration of 25 years of this celebration, for your children, for your descendants in time. Thank you for letting me be your guest today. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, and to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, and to love
The Service to Humanity Award, presented annually by the Human Relations Commission, began in 1991 in an effort to acknowledge individuals and organizations that have made outstanding achievements in the area of human relations. This year's recipient is well known in the community for her record of exemplary service, commitment to improving human conditions, and dedication to responding to the unmet needs of others. Brenda is a lifelong learner, and upon graduation from G.W. Carver High School in Pine Tops, North Carolina, she continued her education at the former Edgecombe Community College and here, North Carolina Wesleyan College. She also continued her studies at the North Carolina Criminal Justice Academy, the J.Y. Monk Real Estate School, and completed her paralegal studies at the Career Institute. Brenda retired from the North Carolina State Department of Corrections in 2003. Brenda's influence has benefited many adults, organizations, and numerous associations. Her services to the community include member of the Martin Luther King Jr. Commission for 26 years, tutor for the former Foreign Students Program at D.S. Johnson Elementary School, volunteer with Communities and Schools Program, a teacher at Nash Community College with the GED program, a licensed notary, a team leader for the American Cancer Society, and a mentor for the Big Brother, Big Sister program. Brenda also holds memberships with several organizations, namely the American Business Women Association, the National Federation for the Blind, and the patrons and friends of the Library of the Congress. And her heart, of course, Ebenezer Baptist Church, where the Reverend Dr. Thomas L. Walker is her pastor. Here she serves on the Greeters Ministry and numerous other ministries. As a family person, Brenda is the devoted daughter of Flora Bell Lane Macklin and the late Herman Lorenzo Macklin, sibling to the brothers Kenneth and Rinaldo Macklin, and sisters Warrior Hogan and husband Jerry, and Tamara Dickey and husband Clyde. She is the loving wife of her high school sweetheart, John Bynum, the proud mother of John Hurlin Bynum and wife Donna, and the overjoyed grandmother of Donnice Bynum. One of her greatest accomplishments is indeed her family. Unfortunately, medical procedures have now left her visually impaired. She does not regard her visual impairment as a disability, rather as an opportunity for a new capability. She has learned to read Braille and continues to educate others by passing on these skills to other blind persons. The courage and determination of Brenda is an inspiration to others. As she models the scriptures, we walk by faith and not by sight. Our beloved and remarkable Rocky Mount has not been created overnight. We proudly can claim this honorable title for our city because we have citizens like Brenda M. Bynum contributing to the betterment of our community. On behalf of the Human Relations Commission, it is with great pride that we present this award for the 2013 Service to Humanity Award to Brenda Macklin Bynum.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, the award reads as follows. In recognition of Brenda M. Bynum, who reached beyond the boundaries of self to provide quality service and compassion to the community, the Human Relations Commission bestows this Service to Humanities Award January 21st, 2013 to Brenda M. Bynum.
Okay, thank you. Right in front of you. Good morning. To God be the glory. To the Human Relations Department, the Dr. Martin Luther King Commission members, and to families and friends. I feel honored to receive this award, this prestige award, on this particular day. And I thank each of you for your prayers and support. Keep praying for me.
Good morning. A litany based on the writing of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Reflecting on the past, what have you learned? Refuse to believe that we are unable to influence the events which surround us. Reflecting on the past, what do you see? I refuse to believe that we are so bound to process in war that peace, brotherhood, and sisterhood are not possible. Embracing the present, what have you learned? I believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for the bodies, education, and culture for the minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for spirits. Embracing the present, what do you see? I believe that there is a urgent need for people to overcome oppression and violence without resorting to violence and oppression. Envisioning the future, what have you learned? I believe that if there is light on hand, there is earth's darkness. Envisioning the future, what do you see? I believe the God work within people. I believe the work within you, and the light and the shine should gather together, and everyone will sit under their own vine, the fig tree, and none shall be afraid. Amen.
From a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains are white. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagles take to flight. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the voice of hope, it's the voice of peace, it's the voice of every man. and it's the love of loves. It's the heart of every man. It's the hope of hopes. It's the love of loves. It is the heart of every man. And God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. Oh, God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. He's watching us from a distance.
I invite you to please stand for our benediction. Go now and overcome. Overcome hatred with love and understanding. Overcome discrimination with honor and respect. Overcome injustice with fairness and equity. Overcome war with peace and compassion. And may the dream live on in us, and may the God of dreams guide and bless you always. Amen.